Have you ever wanted to build a library application in JavaScript and to do it by utilizing object-oriented programming and prototyping? If you did, you, my friend, are in the right place, because in this video we'll be doing just that. I mean, even if you did not want to do it and were not aware that you want to do it, I highly recommend you to stick around, because if you did not get that clear understanding about prototyping in JavaScript or object-oriented programming in JavaScript, this video might be your best friend. Because here, everything should be way clearer by the end of the video. Greetings, dear friends, fellow programmers, and those aspiring to be. Welcome back to Marco Code Academy, a place where we apply theoretical knowledge in action. In this lesson, as promised, we'll be building a library application, and we will be doing it from scratch, from the entirely empty project. Of course, because we do not want to make this video lesson last forever, we will not be focusing on the UI part, we'll just be building the core logic for everything by utilizing object-oriented JavaScript. So, the first thing we need to do is to jump to our Blackboard, define all the objects we need and their properties and behaviors in order to make everything work as expected. Let's do just that. Why am I here? How did I end up here? Well, now that I'm here, let's use the opportunity to talk about our new library application. So, let us discuss what we will need in order to make our library application fully functional and actually usable. So, first things first, we need to discuss what are the classes or objects later on that we will be needing in order to make our library application do what we want it to do. So, the first thing, we want, obviously, a library, because we want to build a library that we can actually in the future extend, because we want to grow our business into multiple libraries. And when you have multiples of something, you want to use classes, because it's going to make your life easy when you want to just create new instance of that class. So we have a library class. Then, what every library has? Well, it has books and also it has employees. So that is why we have those two additional classes. And now that we know that, let us discuss what are the properties that each of these classes should have in order to mimic the real-life behaviors that we would actually need if we were building a real-life library application. Here are all the properties we need for our classes. So, as we can see here, our library is going to contain an array of books and an array of employees, because every library has more than a single book, duh, and also it has more than a single employee. And basically for the library, we could have added maybe something like a name of the library or the address or something like that, but we are building a simple application just as an example, so we will not make things more complicated than we need them. Then, when it comes to our book class, we have very straightforward situation. We have book title, we also need to know who's the author of the book, we want to know what is the publication year, and finally, we need a flag that is going to be an indicator to us whether the book is available for rent at the moment. So basically, that means that is available is going to be set to true if a person can walk into the library and say, I want to rent that book, and it is available, it is in the library, it is not rented at that moment, and the person can rent it out, and then the is available flag is going to be set to false, because it is no longer available for rent for other people until the person returns the book. And finally, we have our employee class, which has an ID, which is going to be used as employee ID, so we can know for sure what employee we're talking about. We will then need a name property for our employees, because we want to know who people are and how we should call them. And finally, we need to know what is their salary. And basically, now that we added these properties to our classes, we are basically completely ready to start implementing these classes with the properties we just defined and also the behaviors or methods that each of these classes should have at its disposal. So let's go and do just that. So the first thing we need to cover is going to be our library object or objects. What we want to have here, as we have already mentioned on our Blackboard, is to have two arrays, one dedicated to books and one dedicated to employees. And basically, those two arrays will represent all the books that are available inside of that specific library instance, and also that array of employees is going to be all the employees that work in that particular library. And basically, in our constructor function for library, we'll make both of these properties an empty array. Then, what we want to add is, as we already know, we want to be able to add a new book to the library's arsenal of books. Basically meaning that we want to add a new book object into the array of books. So to do that, we'll be using the knowledge from the previous video. So we want to be memory efficient. We do not want to create copies of the methods for each library instance. We want a single method that is going to be reused. So we are going to be using library and its prototype for a method called addBook. And then we will say that this function that is going to be addBook method is going to receive book parameter. And then we will use that parameter that is book to push it into the array of books by using this keyword to access the property of our library instance. We can see that this method was extremely simple. It just pushed and added another book into the array of books for this specific library instance. Then, what we want to be able to do is to list all the books that we have in our library instance. To do that, we'll be using again prototyping to create a method called listBooks, and we want a single instance of this method, so that is why we are using prototyping, and we will then use for each loop to iterate through our entire array of books that is stored in each of the library instances, and then for each book from that array, we want to log it into our console by invoking getDetails method that we will implement on our book class in the future. So for now, we just know that we are invoking getDetails information on our book instances for each book in our books array for our library. That was a mouthful, but it's very simple, as you can see. Okay, when that is done, we need to address our employees, which is going to be a fairly similar process. We have addEmployee method, which does the same thing as addBook. We want to add a new employee in our array of employees. We will just push the employee we have provided as parameter to addEmployee method and push it into employees array that is assigned to our library instance. Then also we want to have listEmployees method that is going to be the same as listBooks method. So we again have the for each loop iterating through all employees in the array and invoking their getDetails method. And then we are reaching our final method for our library objects. I'm talking about calculate sum of salaries for employees, meaning that we want to go through all the employees in the array for this library, sum all the salaries of employees, and print that number we got as a result in the console. That way, we can know what our expenses are in the end of the month. And now that we are done with our library, it is time to pay some attention and give some love to our book objects. So we want our book to have title, author, and publication year properties, and also we want it to have isAvailable flag. Each of these properties, except isAvailable, is going to be populated through the parameters we pass to the constructor function, and isAvailable is going to be set to true initially, because when we add a new book, it means that it is still not rented out to a person. So we will say that it is available for renting. Then we want to create methods for allowing us to rent out our books. Meaning, we will first create a new prototype method for renting out our books. And basically this method will just set isAvailable property to false. And then opposite to that, we want to be able to say that our customers have returned the book, and in that case, we will set isAvailable property to true. Then we have our, remember, getDetails method that we used in our library listBooks method. And here we want to prepare a string literal that is going to print out the information about each book in a well-structured and organized way. We will first add the title of the book, followed by, because we are about to provide the author of the book. And that is it. It is a very simple story here, and then we are finally reaching our employees. And the story here is again very simple. We have ID, name, and salary for each employee object. We just use our constructor function to set those properties with parameters that are provided, and then we have salary increase method just to add the capability to our application to increase the salary of employees, because we want to be good employers, and we basically just provide the increase amount, which is going to be amount of money that we want to increase salaries to our employees by. We increase the value of our salary property by the increase amount provided to this method as parameter. And finally, we want to implement getDetails method, which again prints out the important information about each employee in a well-organized way. And now, the moment of truth. It is time to test if our application is working as expected. As you can see here, I have created 5 instances of books containing the relevant information, which are the title and the author. The rest of the information is not so relevant. Then we will create a new instance of a library, and we do not need to provide it with any parameters because, if you remember, the constructor function for library just initializes the arrays containing books and employees, nothing more than that. So right here, after that is done, we will use addBook method that we have at our disposal for our library instance to add those 5 books one at a time. And after that is done, we just invoke listBooks method, which should list all the books that were added to our library. So when I run this code, let's see if that is the case. And yeah, that's exactly what we got as a result. We can see that all 5 of our books are printed out in the exact same order as we added them to our library, meaning that our logic for working with library and its books works as expected. Now let's put our employee logic to the test as well. To do that, so we do not get distracted by the list of books, I will comment out this part where we are listing books, and I will just paste the initialization part for our employees. So I will create 3 employees, each one having ID with a name and base salary. We have 3. We are then adding those employees to our library, listing employees, and calculating the sum of salaries, so invoking those 2 methods. After that, we will be testing the salary increase method for employee 1 and employee 2, increasing salaries by 500 and 300 respectively, and then again listing employees and calculating the sum of salaries to check if all those methods work as expected. So when we run our code, what do we get? Let me expand this. So we first see the list of our employees and the salaries that we defined initially. And then we see that the salary of all employees is exactly the sum of these three numbers. Then we have increased the salary of employee 1 by 500, so 1,500 plus 500 is 2,000. And also we have increased the salary of employee number 2 by 300, so 2,200 plus 300 is 2,500, which means that our final sum of salaries should be 800 more than the initial, which is exactly the case as you can see here. Meaning that our application for managing our library seems to be working perfectly fine for both books and employees, which was our end goal, right? So, miraculously, everything seems to be working as expected. And the way we were able to make everything work so easily and quickly is because of the power of object-oriented JavaScript and its prototyping capabilities. And the best part is that this code is very performant because we are not making duplicate methods for each instance of objects. Now, I would like you to spend some time, try to recreate same type of application, play around with these concepts, try to build something awesome on your own. And of course, if you get stuck anywhere, please do feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'll gladly try to help you out. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and turn the notifications on. It would really mean a lot to me and help me grow the channel and reach even more people and help them out on their journey to becoming an amazing developers. Until the next video, thank you for watching and have an amazing day. Happy coding!